This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I'm undertaking a series of videos on how to bind off ribbing. This first bind off is the Smiles and Frowns bind off. It's my very favorite needle bind off, and I think that everyone can learn this, and it's an extremely useful stitch. My next bind off is a double backstitch bind off. It's a little firmer bind off than many, kind of a very interesting decorative edge. It looks like pearls along the edge. My next bind off I call the Purl Graft bind off. It goes on kind of like Kitchener stitch. Very stretchy, very professional looking, with a little bit of a purl stitch again along the edge. This next bind off was done with a crochet hook, and it's a way to bind off after you're off the machine and get the same look as a loop through a loop bind off. And this last bind off is a whip stitch bind off, and it simply involves getting 2 whip stitches into every single knit stitch on either side of the 1x1 ribbing. So those are the different ways that you can bind off after the fact with ribbing, and I'm going to have a few little videos showing how to do these. This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I've got a sample here of ribbing so that I can demonstrate a needle bind off. Now, you very often find yourself, as you work, having big ribbed areas that just need a good bind off. It needs to have a little bit of stretch to it and a nice tidy edge. And there are times when this is going to really show and you want it to look like a finished edge. Now, I'm going to start by taking my yarn through to the circular part of this. You see, I did 14 rows of ribbing on my bulky machine, and then I put in 16 rows or 8 rounds of waste yarn set circular, so that just holds everything like a stitch holder. It makes it easy for me to go ahead and not lose any stitches as I work. A lot of times when you see illustrations of needle bind offs, they'll draw it as if you were working on live open stitches, but that's too difficult. We want this to be fun and easy. So we use waste yarn, and it does make it much easier. Now, as I look at my sample, I want to start with the very first stitch. And the very first stitch right here is this one. So I want to get oriented. I'm going to call this needle bind off the Purl Graft bind off. We're going to do something rather like Kitchener stitch with these pink loops. They're my live loops poking through the waste yarn. I'm going to start across from that first stitch and go in here and go through that first stitch, just like that. It's very much like closing a toe from the wrong side. And then I draw that up, then I go to the second one, and then go back to that first loop on the opposite side and draw that up. Now, you don't draw it up super tight. You want a little bit of softness to the pull. It should be a little bit like the same tension as a row of knitting. If you pull it up super tight, then you will not have the stretchy edge that you need most of the time when you're binding off ribbing. Now, the next loop will be this one, so I go to the new loop, go across to the old loop. One of the things I like about this bind off is it's fast. Fast, stretchy, decorative. What more could I ask for? New loop, old loop, new loop, old loop. I have a number of other bind offs that you can see by looking through my YouTube videos. I strongly recommend that you learn the Smiles and Frowns bind off for ribbing, because I think it's the very best needle bind off. And I also strongly recommend that you learn the loop through a loop bind off or cast off for ribbing. So, new stitch, old stitch, new old. Or I used to have a friend who said clean, dirty. Clean, dirty. You really want to relax and just practice your tension. You'll know it has a certain feel when you've pulled it up enough. Not too many stitches left. Now, when you get to the end, then go ahead and go to the next clean one, go back to the last dirty one, but to finish, go back over and get that last, the one that was just clean, get it again. And then bring your yarn to the inside of that waste yarn. It makes it much easier to unravel the waste yarn. And unravel your waste yarn. Find the end. If you split the waste yarn somewhere, the easy thing to do is clip it close. I did split mine someplace. Here's how this looks. It looks like purl stitches that just go right over the top. That's why I call it the Purl Graft. And it's nice and stretchy. It really is a good looking bind off. I could just picture this, for instance, on the edge of a knitted collar.